Hello and welcome to Unit 3, Week 3 of Journalism 301, History of the Mass Media. I'm Dr. DuPont, and I have finally got my voice back a little bit and can give you some audio to accompany these PowerPoints that I have provided for the course. Again, if you have any questions about how the course is going or what is going on, please don't hesitate to contact me. It's ndupont@olemiss.edu. You have a lot to read this week. There are 3 chapters, and you'll have questions and be tested on all 3 chapters. However, I want you to pay particular attention to Chapter 7, The Penny Press. It was during this period that journalism really became a commercial entity. Advertising became almost the sole means of support for American media. And this continues all the way through the history of the American media. It's not necessarily true in other countries that they depend so heavily on advertising as we do. So it's an important period, the penny press. Also, just a note, please read your directions before you take your quiz. It was confusing to some of you this past week that there was only one question. We'll always have quizzes that are a short answer, but there won't always be the exact number. So I'll put that in the instructions before the quiz. So make sure you just read those before you begin. After the Revolutionary War, the United States was a new country. And the Constitution in the First Amendment had protected newspapers, journalism. So we wanted newspapers. America knew it wanted newspapers, but it didn't really know what form they should take. And sort of naturally, they became newspapers that were associated with a particular political party. And if that party was in power, the government would give very lucrative printing projects, printing jobs to the newspapers of the parties in power. So you definitely wanted your party to be in power. If your party wasn't in power, your party was supporting your newspaper. So you absolutely took a political view in your newspaper. The party press period produced the first national newspapers, the Gazette of the United States, the Evening Post, and the National Gazette. We're all national newspapers, and we haven't always had national newspapers. We do now. You can pick up USA Today and see a national newspaper. But this was a time when all of the nation, which was pretty small at that point, was reading national newspapers. And Andrew Jackson brought in a new party in 1828. He was someone who wanted to be a man of the people. He wanted to be associated with the rise of the common man. And in the 1828 election, Jackson had the support of all 3 national newspapers. And naturally, as people moved west, they supported Jackson because he was really encouraging the movement west. What the party press gave us, the first national Washington correspondence. They gave us the first editorials. Naturally, if they were supporting a particular political party, they wanted to editorialize against the other party. They had an emphasis on domestic news and local news. They kind of stopped covering so much about Europe because people were becoming Americans and were interested in home. And printing presses got much faster during the party press. The West was being settled in the 1830s, but in the established parts of the United States, people were leaving farms and going to cities because this was the Industrial Revolution, where factory work replaced farm work as being a way people could make a living. And for that, they naturally moved into a centralized location, and that would be cities. Now, the penny press was the next period that you need to know about. A medical student in New York, whose name was Horatio David Shepard, noticed that the difference between nothing and 1 penny was really not a big deal to the masses. They would buy most anything if it only cost a penny. So it almost seemed like the common man was getting something for nothing. So the penny press, this gave rise to the penny press. Shepherd himself started a penny newspaper, but it failed. But in 1833, a man by the name of Benjamin Day bought the New York Sun and sold it on the street for exactly 1 cent. And that reduced the price of newspapers, and it also changed the way that newspapers were delivered to people. So this is where we get advertising, because obviously a penny a paper is not going to cover the publisher's cost. So now we have advertising. The New York Sun really wanted to reach the common man, not at all pretentious, covered courts and police, which would be of interest to the common man, of course, drunks, vagrants, prostitutes. And one of the interesting things it did was it invented a hoax about the moon. It started publishing articles about how the moon was covered with vegetation, and it had people who were flying around on the moon. It was absolutely a hoax. It wasn't true, but the New York Sun sold a lot of newspapers while it was involved in the moon hoax. James Gordon Bennett, another important name in the penny press and in American journalism history in general. He was extremely outrageous, and he started calling things by the names they had on the street. So he called women's underwear petticoats, which they just hadn't been talked about before that. And when people got mad, he got mad back. And he believed that current information should reach the people. And where the people were, that's where the news was. Another important person, Horace Greeley, who is going to be important in American history for several decades, started the New York Tribune. And he wanted it to be comprehensive, where people could get all of their news. Very opposed to slavery, very opposed to capital punishment. He encouraged labor unions, and he also encouraged move to the West. He's the man who said the famous quote, "Go West, young man," because that's where the opportunity was. Very, very successful newspaper. Now, Henry Raymond was Horace Greeley's assistant editor, and he left because he didn't feel his salary was high enough, and Raymond was very political. Along with Greeley, he believed in abolition. He was against capital punishment. He started the New York Times, which of course we know the New York Times is still the best known newspaper in the United States. And he was dedicated to news. He hired a large number of newspapers, and they were to find exclusive stories, which I'm sure you'll agree the New York Times is still known for its reporting and its exclusive stories. Again, questions? Please write me, ndupont@olemiss.edu. Good luck this week.